Every plane that never flew explained. The Caproni CS60 was designed to be the future of long-distance air travel, a massive flying boat capable of carrying dozens of passengers across the Atlantic. With 9 wings stacked in 3 sets, it looked less like an airplane and more like a floating structure with wings attached. The idea was simple: more wings meant more lift. But in reality, it created instability and overwhelming aerodynamic drag. During its first test in 1921, it briefly lifted off the water, struggled to stay balanced, and then crashed violently, breaking apart before it ever had a chance to prove itself. It wasn't a lack of ambition that stopped it. It was a design that simply couldn't handle its own complexity. The Blohm and Voss P170 looked like something designed without rules. Instead of a single fuselage, it had 2 separate bodies connected by a wing, with engines placed in asymmetrical positions. The goal was efficiency and unconventional performance, but the result was a nightmare of imbalance and control issues. Pilots would have faced constant instability, with uneven thrust and unpredictable handling. It never progressed beyond design stages because even on paper, it was clear that controlling such a machine would have been dangerously difficult. Sometimes innovation pushes boundaries, sometimes it ignores them entirely. The Vought 173, often called the flying pancake, challenged the very shape of what an aircraft should be. With a nearly circular wing and 2 large propellers, it was built to take off at extremely low speeds and operate from short runways. And technically, it worked. It could fly, hover-like, and handle at slow speeds better than most aircraft. But speed, efficiency, and practicality suffered. Its unusual design limited its performance, and while it proved an interesting concept, it couldn't compete with more conventional aircraft. It wasn't a failure because it didn't fly. It was a failure because it didn't matter enough. The Macdonald F-85 Goblin was a fighter designed to live inside another aircraft. Small enough to fit inside a bomber, it was meant to be deployed mid-air to defend larger planes, then dock back inside after combat. The concept sounded efficient, almost futuristic, but in reality, docking back into a moving bomber proved incredibly difficult. Turbulence made the small aircraft unstable, and pilots struggled just to align with the docking mechanism. Even minor errors could be dangerous. After multiple attempts and near failures, the idea was abandoned. Because sometimes, even if something can fly, it doesn't mean it can work. The Horton H18 represented a vision far ahead of its time. A massive flying wing bomber designed for long-range missions, it eliminated the traditional fuselage entirely, blending everything into one continuous aerodynamic shape. It promised stealth-like advantages and improved efficiency, but the design never made it past planning. The complexity, the scale, and the timing all worked against it. With the end of the war approaching, there was no opportunity to build or test it. It remains one of those ideas that might have changed aviation, but never had the chance. The Kalinin K-7 was one of the largest aircraft ever attempted in its time. Its enormous wing carried multiple engines, with space for crew and passengers built directly into the structure. It looked powerful, almost unstoppable, but size introduced new problems. Structural vibrations became uncontrollable, growing stronger with speed and stress. During a test flight, those vibrations reached a breaking point. The aircraft lost integrity mid-air and crashed, ending the project instantly. It wasn't brought down by enemies. It was brought down by forces it couldn't withstand. The Convair Model 49 was designed for a future where bombers would never need to land. It was a nuclear-powered aircraft concept imagined as a giant flying machine that could stay in the air for days without refueling. On paper, it sounded like the ultimate Cold War weapon: enormous range, constant readiness, and no dependence on traditional fuel. But that promise came with terrifying risks. A nuclear reactor inside an aircraft meant massive weight, extreme shielding requirements, and the nightmare scenario of a crash spreading radioactive material across the ground. The deeper engineers looked, the clearer it became that the idea was more dangerous than practical. The Convair Model 49 wasn't stopped by a lack of imagination. It was stopped by the reality of putting a flying reactor in the sky. The Saunders Roe SR.A1 was a jet-powered flying boat designed to operate from water instead of land. It aimed to combine the speed of jet fighters with the flexibility of seaplanes, but by the time it was ready, the world had already moved on. Aircraft carriers provided a far more effective solution for deploying fighters at sea. The need for such a plane disappeared before it could be fully developed. It wasn't a failure of engineering, it was a victim of timing. Some of these aircraft were bold, some were strange, some were simply too ambitious for their time, but all of them show the same thing: pushing the limits of design.